Emma, could we put Councillor Snowling on mute just for the moment? I think the snuffles are from him. If that's, I can't unmute.
Yeah, I've done it. Okay, we are good to go. Karen, over to you to start the meeting.
Good evening and welcome to the first full council meeting of Broadland District Council on Thursday the 21st of May 2020. This is being held as a virtual meeting and will be live streamed, or is being live streamed. My name is Councillor Karen Vincent. I am Chairman of the Council and I'm delighted that so many members of this Council are present here this evening, albeit virtually. It's lovely to see you and I hope you're all keeping well. I'd just like to take this moment to thank officers for all of their hard work to enable this council to meet this evening to take its essential decisions. As I said, this meeting is being live streamed, it's open to public viewing and is being recorded. You should be aware that any comments that's made in this meeting this evening will be recorded indefinitely. Fingers crossed, hopefully everything will run smoothly, but please do be patient if we find a few gremlins in our works this evening. All members of the council should have received a paper copy of the agenda papers. And if we have members of the public joining us this evening via live stream, welcome to our very first virtual live stream meeting. Right, moving on to the agenda. Just one more thing before I move to the agenda. Just to say, members, we have a very full agenda this evening and I would appreciate it if you could work with me to make this meeting run as smoothly as possible. Should the meeting become a lengthy one, I will adjourn the meeting for a comfort break. And I'm also mindful that it's a Thursday evening and indeed unlikely that we will be finished council business before 8 p.m. And therefore it's my intention to adjourn the meeting at 8 p.m. to enable members who wish to show their appreciation to our essential key workers and the NHS. Now, in the spirit of the virtual meeting that we're holding tonight, I would invite councillors, officers, and anyone else dialing into this meeting to join me in a public virtual clap to show our appreciation to our essential workers and NHS. So we'll be doing that at 8 p.m. and no more ado, let's move on to the agenda. We will start with a roll call to record attendance and also any declarations of interest under item 1 of our agenda. Each member will be called in alphabetical order. When your name is called, please acknowledge your presence and declare any declarations of interest you may have. The other point I'd just like to mention is any questions that you wish to raise during the proceedings this evening, please would you put those in chat. I will then invite you to put your question to full council and then we will debate in the usual way. So that's the etiquette for this evening. Emma, is there anything else, the monitoring officer, that you would like to draw members' attention to in terms of the etiquette before we go to the roll call?
Thank you, Karen. Just in terms of etiquette, members, as Karen has said, please treat this meeting as if you are in the council chamber and bear with us, as I'm sure we may have a few gremlins as we go through, but I'm sure as we work through the evening, it will work in full flow. But I appreciate your support in helping this work well.
Emma, unfortunately, I couldn't hear any of that.
Okay, can you hear me now, Karen?
No.
Karen? No.
I can't hear you, Emma.
No. Can anyone else hear me?
No.
Linda, would you mind popping in and helping Karen with her sound, please? Or just have a pause in proceedings?
I'm assuming I'm the only one who can't hear Emma.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. On that basis, no more to ado. Let's proceed with a roll call. Officer Matthews, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chairman. I will just call out members' names in alphabetical order. If you could confirm your attendance and also tell me if you have any declarations of interest. Councillor Adams.
Here, and no declarations of interest.
Councillor Beadle. I don't think Councillor Beadle.
He sent his apologies.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Britcher.
Present and no declarations of interest.
Councillor Bullman.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Catchpole.
Present and an interest in the item regarding the Bure Valley Railway and as Elsham councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Copplestone.
Present, and I'd like to declare my declaration of interest. My holiday cottage business has received a business support grant from Broadland District Council under the Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Scheme 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crotch.
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Emsell.
Here, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fisher.
I'm not muted. Okay. I have no interest and I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Folger.
Councillor Folger, you've unmuted.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Grattan.
Present, declaration of interest. Like Councillor Copplestone, I've received a business support grant for my hospitality business.
Thank you. Councillor Gurney.
Present and no declaration of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Hartley.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison. I haven't seen him.
No, I haven't seen him, Dawn.
Councillor Hempsell.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Holland.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlu.
Present and no declarations of interest.
Councillor Kelly.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor King.
Haven't seen Councillor King, Dawn.
Thank you. Councillor Lorne.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Lawrence.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Leggett. That's Judy Leggett.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
Declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Mackie.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Moncur. Councillor Moncur, do you have any declarations of interest?
Yeah, present. Agenda item 14, item 2, declaration of interest, pecuniary interest, grant from small businesses from Broadland.
Thank you. Councillor Murrell.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Neeson.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Nurden.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Peck. Sorry, Councillor Peck, could you say that again?
I think that did sound like a chipmunk, but I do think that was a present and no declarations of interest. There's obviously a sound issue with Councillor Peck's equipment, but I can verify I saw him say present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Prutton.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Present, and I'm the ward member for Aylsham. There is an item on BVR, but I have no financial interest in BVR or any connection with them whatsoever.
Thank you. Councillor Roper.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Present, with one declaration under item 14. I have received a small business grant from Broadland District Council.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Councillor Shaw, you're not letting me unmute. You need to unmute, please.
Yeah, there we go. Present, no declarations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Snowling.
No declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Starling.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Thomas. That's D. Thomas.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor J. Thomas.
Hi, present. Yeah, declaration of interest under 14.2 on the agenda. I'm a shareholder in a company that's received a small business grant.
Thank you. Councillor Karen Vincent.
I'm present and I have no declarations of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Vincent.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Walker.
I've not seen him present.
No, I don't think I have. No, Councillor Walker?
No, Councillor Walker, no.
Thank you. Councillor Ward?
I don't believe I've seen Councillor Ward either, Dawn.
Yes, he
is. Oh, yes,
here.
I have. There he
Yeah.
is. I've found him. You're unmuted. Councillor Ward, you won't let me unmute you. You need to unmute yourself.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. And Councillor Wymark?
I'm present. I have a non-pecuniary interest in item 9 under Beer Valley Railways as the County Councillor for the Oxford Division. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the declarations and the roll call for attendance, Chairman.
Thank you, Officer Matthews. If we now proceed to item 2, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chairman, I have apologies from Mr. Clancy.
Thank you very much.
And Councillor Beadle sent his apologies also.
Oh, do apologise, Chairman. Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3. I'm proposing I will take items 3 and 4 together. That is to consider the minutes of the council meetings held on the 20th of February 2020 and on the 1st of April 2020 and any matters arising from them. If you have any points of accuracy or indeed any matters arising on these either set of minutes, please will you let me know now using the chat function. Please would you help me by including any reference to the page and minute number when doing so? Thank you. I see that we have had one comment on the minutes of, I'm just checking on chat now. Councillor Roper, I understand you had a comment on the minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's on the minutes of the 20th of February at the bottom of page 15 on your agenda pack, in the very last sentence. If that sentence could be changed to claims could not be made where the member was a member of the parish council, nor, and then the sentence continues. Just because I don't think how it's minuted quite captures the point. of members not being able to claim to go to parish councils where they're a member. And also, just in the previous paragraph, 4 lines up, that same sentence is there again, and if that could be amended in the same terms, please.
Councillor Roper, for the avoidance of doubt, could you just say the words again that you want to be inserted in those 2 paragraphs, please?
Absolutely. So the bottom line of page 15 under number 17, it says claims could not be made where the member was, and then my new words are a member of the parish council, nor when also able to claim, and it continues as it's written.
Okay. Members, let's just try something. Can you show by a show of hands using the chat function if you are happy with that amendment, please?
I would say that is carried, Chair.
Thank you. Right, do we have any other comments on the minutes? Nope, I'm taking that we don't. So on that basis, I propose that those 2 sets of minutes are a true record of the council meetings held on the 20th of February 2020, on the 1st of April 2020. Could we, I'm afraid we'll have to go through a roll call just to check that we're all in favour of that. I'll ask Officer Matthews to call the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'll again call your names in alphabetical order if you can confirm that you're happy with the minutes with that amendment made by Mr. Roper. So Mr. Adams, sorry, Councillor Adams.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
Yes, happy, thank you.
Councillor Britcher.
Yes.
Councillor Bullman.
Yes.
Councillor Catchpole.
Yes.
Councillor Cook.
Yes.
Councillor Copplestone.
Yes.
Councillor Crotch.
Yes.
Councillor Emsall.
Yes.
Councillor Fisher.
Yes.
Councillor Councillor Folger. Councillor Folger, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Are you happy with the minutes, Councillor Folger?
Yes. Yes,
Thank you.
I am.
Councillor Grattan.
Yes.
Councillor Gurney.
Thank you.
Councillor Hartley.
Yes.
Councillor Hempsall.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Holland.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlu.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Lawn.
Yes.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Judy Leggett.
Yes.
Councillor Ken Leggett.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. Councillor Mackie.
Yes.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Yes.
Councillor Moncur.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Murrell.
Yes.
Councillor Neeson.
Yes.
Councillor Nurden.
Yes.
Councillor Peck. Councillor Peck, are you able to give you a thumbs up? I can see you, but I can't hear you. Thank you very much. That's an affirmative. Councillor Pratton, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Roper.
Yes.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Yes.
Councillor Shaw. Councillor Shaw.
I was muted. I thought you were going to take it off, but you didn't. Yes, I'm happy.
Yeah,
with it.
I tried, Councillor Shaw, but it wouldn't let me.
Ah.
Thank you. Councillor Snowling.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Snowling. Councillor Starling.
Yes.
Councillor D. Thomas.
Yes.
Councillor J. Thomas.
Yes.
Councillor Vincent. Karen Vincent.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Vincent.
Yes.
Councillor Ward.
Yes.
And Councillor Wymark.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews, for that. So we've approved the minutes of those two meetings and we had no matters arising from them, which takes us on to the announcements. To receive the announcements, firstly from myself. I'd just like to start with a few thank yous. First and foremost to the officers to get the virtual meeting up and running for us this evening. A lot of work does go into doing this. Also for officers who continue to deliver or provide valuable services, doing their work, and so that we're able to deliver the essential work of the council during these difficult times. And for the staff that are redeployed to work in our help hub, again, helping those who need particular help during this, as I say, this unprecedented time. I'd also like to go on to thank the members and their support during the community, and also to promote our Broadland Heroes campaign, which was launched earlier this week. That's to recognise the work, the good work that has been done, invaluable work that's been done within our communities at this very time. So I would encourage members to share stories of individuals in their communities who are helping and doing so much to help others. We would like to recognise those, and there will be a community heroes pin that we will be awarding them with to recognise their work, and there will be recognition and our Community at Heart Awards later in the year. My civic engagements are listed on page 36. It's quite a short, concise list this time. Sadly, many of my events have been cancelled, quite understandably in the circumstances, not least our celebration commemorations for VE Day. I'm hopeful that we can, once we come out the other side of this, that we can get back on track and continue with some of those events that we had hoped to hold in whatever shape or form that they may take. Right, I will now hand over to the Vice Chairman. Do you have any announcements, Vice Chairman?
I'd like to support the comments which you've already made. Thank you.
I'd now invite the leader if he has any announcements.
In a similar vein, I would also like to support the comments that have already been made. I do appreciate that these are unprecedented times. Nothing is normal. The world is a very strange place at the moment, but the officers of Broadland under the one team have really stepped up, delivered a full council response, and there are some particular areas that are delivering exceptionally well. Not to mention all of them, but to cover a few. So the Help Hub, the housing team, the benefits team, and also those working towards our recovery plans. So the planning teams and economic development. I'd also like to take the opportunity just to mention some of the our suppliers who are also supporting us, especially Veolia, who, despite all of that's going on, have been able to keep collecting our bins. Evidently, they've collected over 1 million since shutdown, which is quite a phenomenal thing to have done, despite all of the challenges that they have faced. In addition, just picking up what the chairman said, and just again reiterating our thanks to the towns and parish councils for their efforts, both individually and with the community groups that they are supporting. There's sort of tirelessly on a day-to-day basis, collecting and delivering prescriptions, delivering food parcels, helping transport and getting people to where they need. It's just been a phenomenal effort on all parts, and I'd just like to, on behalf of the council, thank everybody for everything that they're doing. Nothing else from me.
Thank you, Leader, for your comments. And members of the Cabinet, do any of the members of the Cabinet have anything they would wish to share at this point?
Judy Leggett, I think would like to make a comment, Chairman.
Councillor Leggett, I invite you to put forward your announcement, please. Councillor Leggett, could you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry, I thought I was. With regard to the fireworks motion from our meeting in February, I'd just like to say that a communications programme is being designed in line with the regulations of fireworks, which was actually published on the 1st of April this year. We're also awaiting research currently being carried out by the government into decibel levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leggett. Are any other members of the Cabinet wishing to speak at this point?
Councillor Hempsall.
Councillor Hempsall, would you like to put your point to Council, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I really want to, as the planning portfolio holder, really thank the planning team, the chairman of the planning committee and all the members of the planning committee and all the staff behind them for the absolutely superb virtual planning committee that was held yesterday. I could cry. I'm so proud of you all. I think it went beautifully well. Everybody was beautifully presented. The agenda went smoothly. Honestly, you know, we keep saying unprecedented times, but the team have stepped up to the plate and just delivered absolutely everything that's necessary to just keep the wheels on democracy in these times. So I just really want to thank them. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsall, for those kind words. I'm sure they'll be well received. Are there any other members of the Cabinet wishing to speak at this point? No. I will invite the Head of Paid Service if he has any announcements to full Council.
Chairman, thank you very much indeed. Can I reiterate the thanks to councillors, officers and the banks of volunteers who have responded so well to support our community in Broadland in these very challenging times. And just to give some feel for some of that, over 4,500 people across the two council areas who are on the government's shielded list have had direct contact by officers of the council. Nearly 4,000 food parcels have been delivered to people who required our support. And in excess of £50 million in terms of government support to businesses has been distributed. These are just some of the statistics of a really, really phenomenal whole of council effort on something which still has some way to run. Can I also commend the chairman for your really good video with regards to the Broadland Community Heroes. If you haven't seen it, please do go on to the council's Twitter site and have a look, and then please do get behind this really, really important campaign. We need to capture those heroes now, because as time progresses, we don't want to miss out anybody that we should have picked up on. Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Officer Holden, for your comments. And yes, it was a lot of fun filming that. Although I was setting myself up a bit, it was all in a good cause. So yes, please do have a look at it. Right, moving on to item 6. Councillor Matthews, do we have any questions from the public?
No, Chairman.
Thank you. And item 7, Councillor Matthews, do we have any, Councillor Matthews, Officer Matthews, do we have any public speaking this evening?
No, Chairman.
Thank you. That takes us to item 8 of our agenda this evening, Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I will now invite Councillor Riley, Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, to present the minutes of the meeting. These start at page 37 on your agenda papers. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the minutes can be taken as read and with no matters to formally raise, Chair. That's on the 3rd of March and also on the 17th of March. Again, the minutes can be read and with no matters to formally raise, Chair. Taken as read, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I wonder, members, if we can, via a show of hands, if we all approve those minutes?
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you. That saves a roll call. That moves us on to the Cabinet item, item 9 of our agenda. These start on page 51 of your agenda pack, and I'll now invite the lead to present the Cabinet minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I would ask Council to receive the minutes of the 10th of March, and dealing with the items that need to come before Council. First one of those is minute number 92, Development Management charging for pre-application advice. I would ask Councillor Hempsall to introduce this one.
Okay.
Councillor Hempsall.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
You can. Right. Yeah, good evening, councillors, and thank you. Hang on, I'm just finding my place in my papers for a sec. 2 secs. Right. Okay. Right. Pre-application charges have been an idea that's been bandied around Broadland District Council since at least 2011, when I was first elected as a councillor. However, the local government funding landscape has changed significantly since then, and we have been encouraged to find commercial income streams to support the services that we deliver to our residents. So to this end, back in May 2019, I started working with the officers in the planning department to develop a pre-application inquiry charging scheme that would be separate from the planning application fee, which is set out in statute, and our clients, our customers, could either choose to buy into or not. So the officers pulled out all the stops. I asked them to prepare a really robust business case for this versus how much money would this generate, what would be the benefit to the council. And the first draft of the proposals was taken to the place shaping panel on the 4th of November 2019, where all elected members of this council were invited to come along and give their views, because this is a significant policy change to what we've done before. And after a really constructive debate and discussion, I have to say that the principle of charging for pre-application inquiries was accepted, with concerns raised over charging householders, about charging for heritage asset inquiries, SMEs. The schedule was queried on the level of charges for large developments and charities and voluntary organisations. I and the officers took all of those comments back to the drawing board, and we incorporated every last one of them. The revised charging schedule, which is in your papers before you, came to Cabinet on the 10th of March 2020, and prior to that on the 3rd of March to Overview and Scrutiny. At Overview and Scrutiny, this proposal and the charging schedule were approved, and unanimously so at Cabinet. So the recommendation that you have in the papers before you today is that the Council considers introducing pre-application charging fees planning in line with the schedule, which is in Appendix A, starting on the 1st of April 2020. However, we find ourselves in unprecedented times. This has been said several times before. This policy change was developed in a time where COVID-19 and coronavirus in its current form didn't even exist. None of us knew what a global pandemic, flu pandemic looked like. Nobody knew how this was going to affect us personally, how it was going to affect our businesses, how it was going to affect the economy, how it was going to affect our communities. So under the circumstances, we live in times where grown men will cry in supermarkets when they can't get hold of hand soap, where women will fight in the aisles over toilet paper, and disabled people will be turned away from supermarkets when they attempt to shop for basic groceries with their carers. I don't feel that under the current circumstances that introducing this pre-application charge would reflect positively on the enormous efforts that Broadland District Council officers and members are putting into getting us back on track, getting us towards a sense of normality, a sense of, you know, where we belong in this world. This policy was developed when, you know, will we have roaming charges when we travel to France was one of our biggest problems, and we were squabbling over the most insignificant things. And to this end, I wish to table an amended recommendation to Council, which reads that I would like Council to consider introducing pre-application charges as outlined in the schedule in Appendix A, starting on the 1st of April 2021. And I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you, Chairman. And I would like to be given the opportunity to sum up the debate later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsall. Do you have a seconder for your proposal?
Yes, I second it, Councillor.
Councillor Kelly, did you hear?
No, I didn't hear.
No, right, okay. My question to you was, would you like to speak now as seconder, or would you like to reserve the right?
Reserve the right, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Chair.
Yep, and Councillor Riley, I see in chat that you are proposing an amendment. Would you like to put that amendment to Council?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay, please do so.
Thank you. Yes, first of all, I'd like to say that I believe the idea of putting this back to April 2021 in terms of the amendment that's being put forward here, I have absolute sympathy with, because leading up to 2021, we still don't know what the effects of COVID is going to be. Is it going to be a second wave? We just do not know. And therefore, building businesses, etc., could be at strain if this was to go ahead at the moment. Therefore, I think it makes eminent sense. However, I think there's also another issue at hand here, and Councillor Hempsall's correct. This was discussed at ONS, and there was a vote 7-5 around it. There's also a reference to that in the cabinet minutes as well for myself. However, the issue in terms of the primary issue in terms of businesses, building companies being charged for pre-application fees, I completely support. And the reasoning for that is it helps to offset some of the officers' costs in relation to these applications. And of course, we have developers that make profit. So that makes sense. And you can see in the schedule there's an estimate over 4-year phasing of £181,000 roughly. However, I don't believe the same situation can be said of other categories. So therefore, as you can see in the amendment, we are suggesting that other categories, parish councils, town councils, voluntary groups and charities should be exempt from that. Also, if you look at the amount of money that is being brought in, if they was exempt, it would be a smaller, it'd be quite a small amount of this 181,000 as well. Bearing in mind we don't charge at the moment, all of this helps the council, of course, but with those being exempt, this wouldn't make a lot of difference to that money coming in. And I think it's the principle as well here, because, you know, when we're looking at charities, we're looking at parish councils. Parish councils already, of course, have a precept which ratepayers pay. Also, we have charities as well, non-profit bases. And again, this comes down to profit really, that again are not making a profit in relation to this. So therefore, I believe that the amendment would be appropriate, and indeed to support the amendment that Councillor Hempsall has put. So I'd hope that Councillor Hempsall could also see a way to also supporting the amendment that I'm putting forward, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Do you have a seconder for your proposed amendment?
I would like to second the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Would you like to speak now as seconder, or would you like to reserve the right?
I reserve the right for now. Thank you.
Okay. As we have an amendment, we'll open this one up to question and debate first. Would anyone like to speak on this? I have got, right, I have in the chat, I can see that Councillor Sean Vincent, the leader, would like to come in. I'll invite him to speak now.
Thank you, Chairman. As we've all gone through this a number of times, and as the portfolio has stated, the times have changed considerably from where we were before. But also what we're doing here is setting the way forward and the way in which we intend to operate. What I think is perhaps unclear from the charging schedule, and maybe needs some example, is the fact that parish councils, town councils, community groups are part of the groups that receive a discount. So if we work through an example of where they sit, in most instances, they do not pay. They only pay when they're entering into commercial development or doing extensions of larger than 250 square meters, which is quite big. Therefore, when you look at this, the example of a parish council, say for example, building a 9,000 square meter village hall, with all of the funding and stuff that would require, you're looking at a project of, you know, £250,000 to £250,000 to £1 million to deliver. The charge that would be levied on such a thing by the pre-planning fee would be £750, which doesn't seem a great deal, bearing in mind the activities of the caseworkers to support the parish and town councils in delivering such a, or a community group delivering such a thing. So the numbers aren't huge that any community group, town or parish council would have to pay in such instances. Obviously, if they then went down the route of developing, then yes, again, if they're developing more than 3 homes and they're not affordable, then again, they would be levied a charge. And again, that charge is going to be relatively small. So for 3 homes, I think it's between 3 and 9 homes, they would again only be charged £750 when they would be doing commercial development and if they're doing it right, should be in a position of be making tens of thousands of pounds. So it does feel appropriate that the council does make some charge for the pre-application support that it provides in these sort of instances. So that's where I feel this should be. It has been round the mill. We have talked at length at place shaping. The input from members was listened to, as the portfolio holder has explained. The schedule has been amended, and until the community groups and parish councils get to a point of where they're effectively doing very large development or commercial development, then they actually don't have to make any payment. And that to me seems to be an appropriate place to put this. So I don't support this amendment to the recommendation that's been made by the portfolio holder.
Okay. Thank you, Leader. I see in chat there's a couple of people who'd like to speak. I'm assuming that you'd like to speak on the amendment that's been proposed. The first one is Councillor Roper. Just to confirm, are you speaking on the amendment?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chair. I think the Leader looks to address the point about the position of parish councils. But I suppose what we need to consider is that it's all taxpayers' money, and Broadland charging this of parish councils merely goes towards the parish precept and another part of the council tax bill, ultimately. And given that essentially we're looking at exchanges between different levels of local government here, and it will all fall upon the local taxpayers, isn't it best perhaps just to miss out this bit of transaction and actually save the costs of those transactions actually taking place? But I think the more important point is about the charity and third sector, which if any sector has been hit by the current situation with COVID, it has been the ability of charities and third sectors to operate and raise money. And I think in the particular environment we are in, with a lot of charities with much reduced income and will struggle to get going again once the world hopefully returns to normal, I think it is a symbolic and good gesture of Broadland District Council that it doesn't introduce these fees with regard to the charity sector. And that's the main reason why I'm supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. I also see in chat that Councillor Karen Lawrence would like to speak. Again, is this on the amendment, Councillor Lawrence?
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Karen Vincent, it is. I just want to express my support for the amendment, in particular with parish councils and charities and voluntary groups. If they do have funds for a hall or a larger amount, often coming from lottery funds or heritage funds, it's actually restricted funding. So it might be limited in terms of, even though it was very helpful for Councillor Sean Vincent to explain in the example, it still may be very difficult for them to actually cover those costs through the cost of the actual grant or sort of funding that type of funding that they get for that. So I think also on a practical sort of level, that although it might seem very small, if it seems that small, then the gesture is actually worth the making at this moment. And I for that reason I support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Would anybody else like to speak on the amendment? No. I'll then go back to Councillor Thomas. Would you now like to speak?
Thank you, Chair.
Add?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. It's really just to echo Councillor Roper and Councillor Lawrence's comments there as well, but we are talking about a very, very small amount of money. And the opening comments when the pre-application was put forward a moment ago about the work being done by community groups and charities as well. We should be doing everything we can really to support these, and even if it's just a gesture, it's one we really should be making. So I'd really like to encourage the council to support this amendment today.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I will now go back to Councillor Riley with his right to reply to sum up, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's really in line with what I was originally saying, and we've heard some supportive comments in the same way. Really, it's around the principle and the sums and the £750 sum that that the leader mentioned are small, and of the 181,000 over a 4-year phased basis, it actually is a fraction of that figure which will be recouped off of major developers and their profits. And I think therefore it's neither here nor there in terms of what we're actually going to be saving in the scheme of things and the transactions going on between parish councils, etc., as Dan Roper has said. So therefore, I think it would be a very good gesture for us. I think it's quite symbolic as well. And that's really it, Chair. So I'd hope that the council supports the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. The amendment is before council. We now need to see who is in favour of that. We've got two options here, and I will take advice from our monitoring officer whether we can do that by a show of hands or whether we need to go for a roll call for a recorded vote.
Thank you, Karen. For clarity, in terms of the first point we need to discuss is the amendment as proposed by Councillor Riley. And I would, on that, please, Chair, prefer a roll call. If Dawn Matthews could do that for me, please.
Okay. Councillor Matthews, could you please do a roll call on the amendment that's been proposed by Councillor Riley, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Of course, if I call members' names in alphabetical order, if you could indicate if you are for or against the amendment. So it's Councillor Adams.
Against.
Councillor Brennan.
Against.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
Against.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
Against.
Councillor Crotch.
Against.
Councillor Emsall.
Against.
Councillor Fisher.
Councillor Fisher, I can't unmute you.
Against.
Was that against, I believe?
Against. It was against.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Folger.
Councillor Folger.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Grattan.
Against.
Councillor Gurney.
Against.
Councillor Hartley.
Councillor Hartley, can you unmute yourself, please?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Hempsall.
Against.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Creamy Guvenlou.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor Lorne.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor J Leggett.
Against.
Councillor K Leggett.
Councillor Ken Leggett, could you unmute yourself, please?
Hello?
Are you for or against the amendment? Mr.
Against.
Leggett? Thank you.
Against.
Thank you.
Mr. Mackey?
Sorry.
Councillor Mackey.
Against.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Against.
Councillor Moncur.
Against.
Councillor Murrell.
Against.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nurden.
Against.
Councillor Peck.
Councillor Peck has left momentarily, Dawn, to try and sort out his sound.
Okay. Councillor Prutton.
Against.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Against.
Councillor Shaw.
Against.
Councillor Snowling. Councillor
Against.
Starling.
Councillor Starling, could you please unmute your
Yeah,
microphone?
4. Sorry
Thank
about
you. Councillor D. Thomas.
4.
Councillor J. Thomas.
Against.
Councillor Vincent. Karen Vincent.
Against.
Councillor Sean Vincent.
Against.
Councillor Ward.
Against.
And Councillor Wymark.
Against.
Thank you. If you just bear with me, Chairman, I'll just add up those votes.
Thank you, Officer Matthews. I'm mindful of the time, members, that we're fastly approaching 8 o'clock. So I invite you to join me shortly to pay tribute to our key workers and thank the NHS for the wonderful work that they're doing currently. So we'll wait to see if we get the results of the vote. Sounds rather like Eurovision, doesn't it?
Whilst Dawn's counting up, Chairman, just to clarify, if you keep yourselves on mute, but do clap, I will make sure that all of you are seen on the live stream, and I will work it through so that you all can be seen doing the clap for carers at 8 o'clock.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Greg, yeah.
Oh, thank God for that.
Chairman, my totals indicate that those voting for the amendment was 12, those voting against was 29, so the amendment was lost.
Karen, you're muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. So thank you, Officer Matthews, for the vote. I understand that the amendment has been lost. I'll now adjourn the meeting so we can do clap for the carers, at which point I will re-adjourn the meeting and we'll go back to the substantive vote.
Councillors, if you'd like to clap whilst you're on the screen for the clap for carers, and I will make sure we're recording. Thank you.
Thank you all members very much for joining me in that virtual clap to show our appreciation this evening. And I think we even had a four-legged friend joining us this evening. I could hear with one of our councillors. That probably was Tuppence.
That was Councillor Kelly, I think.
Oh, was
I think so.
No,
Okay,
you just
so-
scared me, Cat.
Okay, so I'm now going to re-adjourn our full council meeting. Thank you. We just before our adjournment, we had the result of the vote of the amendment. We heard that was lost. So we now go back to the substantive proposal put by Councillor Hempsall. Councillor Hempsall. Sorry, does anyone that would, do you want to remind us what your proposal was? It does feel a little while ago.
Hang on. Oh, right. The proposal is as was in the paper, I've read it out. It's for council to consider introducing pre-application charges as outlined in the schedule in Appendix A, starting on the 1st of April 2021, please. I mean, in addition to that, I just wanted to respond to Councillor Riley and his amendment. I believe that there is possibly a bit of a misunderstanding on the perception of the pre-application advice charging. This service is an optional service that our customers can opt into if they wish. Often when they will go through, you know, experience from other councils is that often planning agents and architects will avail themselves of this service because it's quick and it's easy and it's completely accurate to save themselves time and money, and then they will still go and charge their clients anyway. So, you know, if charities and parish councils and town councils and voluntary organisations and non-for-profit organisations came directly to us for the pre-app advice and what they would get from us, they would be paying significantly less to put together their planning applications than they would going through a planning agent. So on that basis, you know, Councillor Riley and, you know, all of you, we are so cognizant of the times that we are in today. And if anything, this will help support these organisations in a more constructive way than, you know, a planning agent possibly could. So, you know, this is a service, it's an optional service, and we'll start charging for it from the 1st of April next year once things have had a time, you know, an opportunity to settle a bit. You know, we know where we are, we're not, yeah. I think it'll just be a better time. So yeah, thank you, Chairman, for giving me this opportunity, and yeah, thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsall, for reminding us of the amendment. So it's essentially as it's set out in the agenda pack, but with change in the 1st of April 2020 to the 1st of April 2021. You had a seconder. Does anyone else wish to speak on this proposal, please? Please. Councillor Riley, I understand you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Just pick up on a point actually about this is optional. Well, yes, it is optional. However, we all know that in pre-planning applications, unless you go about your business in the correct way on a pre-application, you're actually could be heading for a fall in the full application process. So these pre-applications always take place, and in terms of you know, charities or ever saving money, it's really not the situation. The situation is on a pre-application fee, even if the parish council was to use an agent for this, the fee is still there, whether it's the agent or whether it's not the agent. So I really actually don't see that point at all. However, in relation to the proposition that's in front of us now, as I originally said in the previous debate, I actually do support putting this back to 2021 because of the current situation, and in terms of the industry as well, being able to support this in terms of pre-application fees. We don't know at the moment. However, I can't really support this proposition because our amendment, actually my amendment, was not successful, and that's a shame really. But on that basis, without that amendment attached, which was just defeated, I'm afraid I can't support the proposition, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, for your comments. I can see in the chat there's a comment from Councillor Roper. Would you like to put your comment to Council, please, Councillor Roper?
So just purely a point of procedure in terms of whether we're going to have one vote or two. Is it, are we going to have a vote to change it from 20 to 2021, or is it just accepted that that's already the substantive motion, so we're just going to have the one vote? I just wanted to check that.
My understanding, and please, monitoring officer, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that the Councillor Hempsall tabled an amended, if I could get my words out, proposal. So we will have a substantive a vote on that one substantive motion.
That's correct, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, monitoring officer. Would anybody else like to speak at this point? No.
I do.
I then go back to you. I'll come back to you, Councillor Kelly. You reserve the right. Would you like to speak now?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. As we've seen, we've done a lot of debate with this motion and what it actually achieves or tries to achieve. Councillor Hempsall has delayed it for a year, which I think is admirable. In a year's time, the world is going to be changed. And we did say, and it was recorded in Cabinet and ONS, and the portfolio holder agreed, that would be reviewed every year, and they would return both to Cabinet and to ONS to see actually what impact this has been having on these draft proposals that we're going through. And as I said, that is perfectly correct, and I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. I'll now come to Councillor Hempsall. Would you have a right of reply? Would you like to sum up before we go to the vote, please?
No, Chairman, I'm happy. I think everything that needed to be said has been said, so I'm happy for this to go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsall. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder. We will now go to the vote, and I will ask Officer Matthews to call the roll, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Please could you indicate if you are for or against the proposal? Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Brennan.
For.
Councillor Britcher.
Against.
Councillor Bullman.
For.
Councillor Catchpole.
Against.
Councillor Cook.
Against.
Councillor Copplestone.
For.
Councillor Crotch.
For.
Councillor Hempsall.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
Councillor Fisher, could you unmute your microphone, please?
Yeah, I keep thinking we're back in planning and you were doing it all.
Sorry, Councillor Fisher, could you confirm if you're for or against?
I've done that. Yeah, for.
Thank you. Councillor Folger.
Councillor Folger, could you unmute your microphone, please?
Councillor Folger, you are unmuted.
Appears to be muted again, Emma.
I can't find him because he's moving around.
I've just lost him.
Bear with me.
Councillor Folger, could you try again unmuting yourself, please?
Councillor Folger, you are now unmuted.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Grattan.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Gurney. Councillor Hartley.
Against.
Councillor Hempsall.
For.
Councillor Holland.
Against.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlu.
Against.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
Against.
Councillor J Leggett.
For.
Councillor K Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mackie.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
For.
Councillor Moncur.
For.
Councillor Murrell.
For.
Councillor Neeson.
Against.
Councillor Nurden.
For.
Councillor Peck.
For.
Councillor Prutton.
For.
Councillor Riley.
Against?
Councillor Roper,
Against.
Councillor Ryman Tubb,
For.
Councillor Shaw,
For.
Councillor Snowling,
For.
Councillor Starling,
Against.
Councillor D Thomas,
Against.
Councillor J Thomas,
For.
Councillor K Vincent,
For.
Councillor S Vincent,
For.
Councillor Ward,
For.
Councillor Wymark.
For.
Just bear with me while I count the votes, please.
Thank you, Officer Matthews.
Chairman, there's 30 members voting for the proposal, 12 against, so that proposal is carried.
Thank you for that. As we've heard, that has been carried. I will now invite Councillor Copleston to present Cabinet Minute number 94, and that is set out on page 55 of your agenda papers. Councillor Copleston.
Thank you, Chair. I'd ask Council to consider minute number 94 about the Bure Valley Railway and Path, and ask Council to approve Resolution 5 of minute 94 and to approve an annual overspend as outlined in 4.19 of the report incurred in the budget 2019-2020 on the combined Bure Valley Railway and Bure Valley Path and Marriott's Way budget. And the note to this states that the accumulation of dilapidations along the Bure Valley Path have meant that in the year 2019-20, spending has increased well in excess of the current maintenance budget to date. The spend this year against the current budget of £12,000 is £30,005, which equates to an overspend of £18,005. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Copleston. Do we have a seconder for this proposal?
Councillor Vincent is seconded.
Sorry, I can see in the chat it's been seconded by the leader, Councillor Sean Vincent. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak later, Councillor Vincent?
Oh, I'll reserve my right, please.
Thank you. Right, I'll now open it up to question debate. Would anyone like to speak? I can see Councillor Steve Riley has said in the chat he would like to speak. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the this funding and the overspend is absolutely necessary in terms of our commitments around the maintenance, and defining it now in this way is exactly what we need to be doing, and for quite obvious reasons as well. Also, the to reallocate the 30,000 per annum rental income from the BVR into assets to cover this is entirely appropriate. So I fully support this, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Would anybody else like to speak on this point? If you could indicate in the chat. Can I take it that nobody else would like to pass comment on this? Okay, I will go back to Councillor Vincent, who reserved the right to speak. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I'd just like to reiterate the words of the portfolio holder that this is a asset for Broadland, which has been recognised also by the ward members in the words that Councillor Riley has said, and the council is seeking to invest in this asset and spend the appropriate funding to ensure that it is enhanced and brought back up to speed. Therefore, the overspend has been required to start that work and is an ongoing programme of works that stretch out over the next few years, and this is just correcting the overspend so that it's recognised by the council. So I've seconded the resolution to council.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Councillor Copleston, would you like to sum up before we go to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank our leader and Councillor Steve Riley for the support on this. It's really important, especially at this time, that the Bure Valley path is maintained, as lots of people are at home and needing to get out in the countryside. So it's great that their officers are undertaking this work, and thank you all for your support.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Copplestone. We've had a proposer and a seconder of this recommendation to council. Could I ask Officer Matthews to take a roll call on a vote, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, if you could indicate if you're for or against the recommendation. Councillor Adams.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
For.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
For.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
For.
Councillor Crotch.
For.
Councillor Emsell.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
Councillor Fisher, we need to remind you to unmute yourself, please.
Councillor Fisher. It's so taxing, isn't it? For.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Folger.
Oh, God. Councillor Folger, you're unmuted.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Grattan.
For.
Councillor Gurney.
For.
Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Hempsell.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
Abstain.
Councillor J Leggett.
For.
Councillor K Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mackie.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
For.
Councillor Moncur.
For.
Councillor Murrell.
For.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nerdon.
For.
Councillor Peck.
For.
Councillor Prutton.
For.
Councillor Riley.
Apologies, a bit late there, Chair. For.
Thank you. Councillor Roper.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ryman.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor Snowling.
For.
Councillor Councillor Starling.
For.
Thank you. Councillor D Thomas.
For.
Councillor J Thomas.
For.
Councillor K Vincent.
For.
Councillor S Vincent.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Wymark.
For.
Chairman, that's carried with one abstention. Everyone else voting in favour. That motion is carried.
Thank you, Officer Matthews. As we've heard, that vote has been carried. That takes us on to item 10 of our agenda, the Planning Committee. I'm proposing members to take items 10 and 11 together to go to the roll call to vote. But in advance of doing so, if I can invite the committee chairperson of each in turn to present the minutes. So if I first can go to Councillor Lawn.
All matters resolved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lawn. And Councillor Gurney for the Licence and Regulatory Committee. Would you like to present those minutes, please?
Yes, thank you. Very detailed minutes, but in line with the legislation that we present, we were talking about a vehicle rather than anybody's personal details. It makes interesting reading for you if you want to read about it, but it is a resolved matter and there was no appeal to the Magistrates' Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. So we've received the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 4th of March and the Licence and Regulatory Committee held on the 18th of March. We just need to check that we accept those minutes. So I'll ask the Officer Matthews to call the roll, please. Thank you.
Chairman, before we start that, as all matters were resolved, I would be happy for a show of hands on these two as all matters were resolved. If councillors can indicate by show of hand.
Thank you. That would help us. Thank you. Let's do that.
Just keep them up for a couple of minutes so that I can see you all. Thank you, Chairman. That's carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. That now takes us to item 12 of our agenda this evening. I still have a thumb up, which that's gone now. That's good. Item 12 of our agenda is the Audit Committee. If I could invite the Chairman of the Audit Committee to present the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of March. Councillor Nurden.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to correct, that was the meeting on the 12th of March. And I'm pleased to present the Audit Committee meeting minutes. Members will note that the rather long outstanding issue of purchase orders still has to be satisfactorily resolved. I reported this to full council at our last meeting in February. Item 35 of the minutes contains a resolution to present the annual report of the Audit Committee to council. I would just like to say that there were a few wording issues which I had raised with the audit manager before the meeting. These were to be resolved before the next full council meeting, but coronavirus intervened, so I do hope to present these at the next full council meeting. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Nurden. You're quite right. The meeting was on the 12th of March. My apologies for that. And thank you for presenting your report.
Sorry, can I just raise a point of order, Madam Chairman?
Yes, Councillor Nurden, could you tell me what your point of order is? Could you refer me to what that is, please?
Right, it's in connection with the next item on the agenda, which is the governance arrangements for COVID-19. May I,
Chairman, may I interject? We need to resolve the minutes from the Audit Committee first, please.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I was about to say the same thing. Could you hold that thought, Councillor Nurden? I will come straight back to you as soon as we've resolved the minutes that we have just been debating on. Monitoring Officer, would you be happy if we did that by a show of hands this time, like we did with the previous ones?
Indeed, Madam Chairman, if you could all raise your hands, please, in relation to the audit minutes. That is carried, Chairman, unanimously.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Right, I come back to Councillor Nurden. You were raising a point of order. If you could explain what that is, please.
Right, thank you, Chairman. And these are indeed unprecedented times, and in order for the council to operate in the circumstances of the pandemic, we have to take unprecedented measures to ensure continuity in the decision-making process. The first point that I wish to make is that on the 5th of May 2020, I and all members of the council received an email from the Senior Governance Officer and Deputy Monitoring Officer advising that Part 4 of the Council's Constitution had been updated to include standing orders, procedure rules for meetings held in accordance with Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, virtual meetings. The link to the amended Constitution on the Council's website was provided, and I was able to read the amendments. To any reasonable resident reading this document, they would understand that these are the new rules under which the Council makes lawful decisions. However, I noted that the Constitution document on the website was dated 21 May 2020, in other words, today's date. So my first question, and I have two questions. First question is, how did it happen that an updated Constitution was published on the Council's website when the amendments to the Constitution had not yet been approved by full Council in accordance with Article 15.3 of Part 2 of the Council's Constitution. My second point relates to the lawful procedure to be followed for the review and revision of the Constitution in accordance with Article 15 of Part 2. I am again looking at Article 15.3, which is changes to the Constitution, where it states, changes to the Constitution will only be approved by the full Council after consideration of the proposal by the Cabinet, advised by the monitoring officer. So my question, where is the duly recorded evidence that this proposal has been given due consideration by the Cabinet or the Emergency Committee? And as I have not been made aware of any such evidence, how will the Council address this oversight in order to give effect to the proposals under this agenda item number 13? And then I have two issues regarding the wording of the Constitution, which I will address after the officer has presented her report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nurden. So I've heard that you have 2 points, a point of order in 2 parts, and both relate to Article 15.3 of our Constitution. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the monitoring officer to reply to that point of order that's been raised, please. Monitoring officer.
Lovely, thank you, Chairman. As we are all aware, and as Councillor Nurden has pointed out, these are in fact unprecedented times that we have never faced before as a country, never mind as a council. In terms of the changes that were made to the Constitution dated the 5th of May 2020, Councillor Nurden is correct. The email went round to members notifying them of the changes to the Constitution. That was in line with best practice and as advised by lawyers in local government. It's very much a chicken and an egg situation. We need the standing orders to enable us to be able to hold these meetings virtually, but I do then need you to ratify the adoption of those standing orders. Hence, in line with best practice, as your monitoring officer, I made the decision to ask officers to add those to the Constitution to be able to bring them through to Council at the earliest opportunity for ratification. In relation to the date on that Constitution, the only answer I can give there is I don't know, because it has not been raised with me, but I will make sure that that is amended and updated to reflect the date of the 5th of May. In terms of the final point that Councillor Nurden has raised in relation to Part 2 of the Constitution, Section 15.3, I will read that out for all members, as I'm sure we've not all got that in front of us. What that says is changes to the Constitution will only be approved by the full Council after consideration of the proposal by the Cabinet, advised by the monitoring officer. I can confirm that with all constitutional changes, the decision does come directly to Council. The consideration of my proposal is discussed with the leader or the relevant portfolio holders or the Cabinet representatives, and the report that you have in front of you is in the name of the leader, showing due process and the fact that that has been considered by Cabinet. I have nothing further to add, Chairman.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Councillor Nurden, would you like to come back on any of those points?
Absolutely. I'm more than satisfied with the response from the monitoring officer. I just wanted to make sure that we are acting in accordance with our Constitution and that everything is done procedurally correct. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think we do find ourselves, as we keep using as an overused word currently this evening, unprecedented times. But thank you for raising your point of order. I'm glad that you're satisfied with the answer that you've been given. So I will move on from that point. You did say that you had 2 linked points. Is that after we start the next item, Councillor Nurden?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. The issues were to deal with the wording contained in Article 27 of the updated Constitution. So once the monitoring officer has presented a report, I will then speak to those items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nurden. Let's move on to item 13 even, governance arrangements, COVID-19. I was about to invite the leader to introduce this item. Okay, I've just had someone run into the chamber to say that Councillor Justin Thomas would like to speak. Councillor Justin Thomas.
Hello, sorry, not sure if it's the right time or not, but at the end of this, I've also got a question about Part 4 of the Constitution, Section 25.2, and the wording of that may need amending as well. So maybe I'll come in with Grant afterwards. Sorry, I had my hand up for a while, so by the time you saw me, it sort of moved on a bit.
Sorry, I'm monitoring the chat. I can't see everybody's face. I'm monitoring the chat for questions. So if anyone, just a reminder, if anyone's got any points they wish to raise, rather than raise your hand, please put it through the chat. Councillor Justin Thomas, are you raising a point of order? If you are, I would need to consider that now.
I'm not sure if it's a point of order, but I believe there's an error in the wording of section 25.2. I believe that's either been amended, or if it hasn't been amended, it should be amended. Do you want me to tell you what my issue is with it now? I don't know what's appropriate.
I think as we're talking about it and you think it's a procedural rule, I think it's probably wise to do that now, Councillor Thomas.
So the current wording of it says rules 2.1 through to rules section 2.1 through to section 26. But I would have thought, given that there's new text being inserted in the Constitution, that the new section 37 should be included in there as well. And also, the sentence is 32 words long and it doesn't have one item of punctuation in it. But if you actually read it carefully, the wording is erroneous, and I don't actually think it gives effect to the intended meaning. So, for example, the second use of the word apply, in my opinion, ought to be deleted, and there should be a comma inserted as well, because otherwise I'm afraid the sentence just doesn't make any sense.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I'll invite the monitoring officer to reply to that, please.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Chairman, and many thanks, Councillor Thomas. Very, very good spot. As I'm sure you can imagine, the Constitution has some ever-evolving links all the way through it, and I will make sure I take that one away and update that one accordingly. I'm more than happy to run the wording by you before I do so.
Thank you, monitoring officer. Right, so we're back to the item 13. I was about to invite the leader to introduce that item. I will now hand over to the leader to present that report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's been said a number of times tonight, and this report's all about it. So I'm going to have to start it by saying unprecedented are these times. And that's what this report is all about, in the requirement to make some interim changes to the standing orders. Within the regulations that have been passed, this is enabling virtual meetings to happen, and it then gives some details around how those can happen, around frequency days, locations. It also picks up elements of the annual general meeting and confirms that current appointments should continue. It also details that meetings are not limited to place or to a place, and therefore can be included virtual, digital and electronic. Also, it picks up the attendance of members and what constitutes them to be able to partake. It also picks up around the aspects of remote access and what is included as being present. Also the aspects around open to the public, and also documentation and the way in which it is open to inspection and the way in which it should be published. Decisions and background papers and how they should be stored and again be presented is in place. So what you have before you is, as I said, the amendment to the standing orders. It talks, as I say, about the public access and press access, and the ability for people to be able to dial into the meeting. The proposed actions are based on the current proposals listed above, and also detailed within the Appendix A, starting at page 80. So in conclusion, I would say the steps outlined in the report enable the council to progress forward in an effective way while ensuring the correct legal steps are taken. So the recommendation is before you on page 79, 8.1. Yeah, 8.1.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. You're proposing that. Do we have a seconder? Yep, I can see in chat Councillor Trudy Mancini-Boyle would like to second this. Councillor Mancini-Boyle, would you like to speak now or reserve the right?
I'll reserve my right, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini-Boyle. Would anyone else like to speak on this point? Councillor Catchpole, I believe you have a point to raise. Councillor Catchpole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like some clarification over 2.1 on page 77, the first bullet point. What exactly does that mean in practice? It suggests that the meetings can be cancelled or arranged without notice.
For the benefit of council, would you mind just reading out the bullet point that you have an issue with, please, Councillor Catchpole?
Yep, no problem. It says the local authority can hold such meetings and at such hour and on such days, and alter the frequency, move or cancel such meetings without requirement for further notice.
Thank you, Councillor Catchpole. I'll ask the leader if you'd like.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, what you've got here is the fact that it's setting out that changes can be made. The council sets out its programme of meetings, and as such those meetings are then set, and there is a process to go through to change those meetings. This just enables those changes to be made more easily and more quickly. It doesn't negate the requirement to actually give notice and publicise the meeting. And I hope I've got that somewhere close, and the monitoring officer, I'm sure, will correct me and put me right if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Monitoring officer, did you want to step in at this point, or are you happy with what's been said?
Very well summed up, Councillor Vincent. It is exactly that. It just gives us the flexibility should we need to change the time of council because we feel 7 o'clock is too late, or it enables us to have meetings quickly should we need to make decisions of an urgent nature without the required notice. So it just gives us that flexibility should we need to respond to issues.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Looking in the chat, I can see that Councillor Nurdin would like to speak. Councillor Nurdin.
Thank you, Chairman, and also my thanks to Councillor Thomas for her intervention. She basically covered pretty much most of the second point that I wanted to raise in connection with the section, what was it, 25. 25.2 of part 4. But I just wanted to ask about the introduction to the Article 27 of part 4, which is somewhat confusing, and I wonder whether it could also be reworded, because it reads, these procedure rules should be read in conjunction with the Council's procedure rules within the Constitution. So my confusion arises in that, are there two sets of procedure rules, one outside the Constitution and this one which is now inside the Constitution? And I wondered whether the wording should be rather more specific so that a layman like myself could understand. It then goes on to state that this means that wherever there is a conflict, the virtual meeting standing orders take precedence in relation to any remote meeting. So again, I'm a little confused. Is this Article 27 not also the virtual meeting standing orders? And if so, should it not be stated as such? Or are there somewhere else that I've missed a set of virtual meeting standing orders? So then this goes on a little bit more to do with Councillor Thomas's points that she raised. Paragraph 3.3 of the Monitoring Officer's report, or should I say the Leader's report, reads, the Constitution sets out the arrangements that are to be followed at committee meetings in terms of holding meetings. And by saying that they are to be followed at committee meetings indicates that this is in relation to future committee meetings. So I had a look through the updated Constitution procedure rules applicable to committees and subcommittees. And this is where Article 25.2 of Part 4 sets out which procedure rules are applicable. And noticeable again by its absence, and thanks Councillor Thomas, which might be virtual meeting standing orders. Was there a specific reason why that was not included? I understand that the monitoring officer has responded to that question, so I will move on because it is clearly an oversight. And then I wanted to go on to the issue of the virtual planning committee meeting, which I attended yesterday as an observer, and was highly impressed by the efficient and professional manner in which the meeting was conducted by, in particular, the chairman, members, and the officers involved. I was very impressed, as I say. But my question relates to whether its constitutional status could be challenged. Can the monitoring officer please confirm whether it was held in accordance with the updated constitution published on the 5th of May 2020, which excludes committees from holding virtual meetings, or whether it was held in accordance with Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, which does permit the meetings to be held. Thank you.
Councillor Nurden, thank you for the points that you've just raised. I'll invite the monitoring officer to respond to those. Monitoring officer, if you could respond, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I will do my best, and I'm sure Councillor Nurden will let me know if I've missed any of his points raised. So in terms of the wording at the top of Appendix A, more than happy, as always, to amend as people see fit on there. What that is trying to say is these standing orders take precedent over any other standing orders within the Constitution and to enable us to hold the meetings virtually. So that stands alongside the standing orders that are in our Constitution. There is no hidden standing orders anywhere. These standing orders enable us to do what we are doing this evening. With regards to the planning meeting yesterday, therein lies the answer to my question earlier. They needed to be in the Constitution to enable us to hold the meetings, and the Council this evening are asked to ratify that. Therefore, the Planning Committee meeting yesterday is a legal meeting and there is no issue there either. And I've referred to Councillor Thomas's comments in Part 4, Section 25.2, and I will obviously update that as well at the time that I update that opening paragraph so that I am more clear and, as Councillor Nurden says, laymen will understand what I have said. So if members are happy, I will amend those to share the rewording with Councillor Nurden and Councillor Thomas after this meeting.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer, for confirming the legality of the Planning Committee yesterday. That's reassuring, thank you. And in terms of, I'm hearing there's a number of amendments to be made, or tidying up, I'd say, to be made to the Constitution. I'm wondering whether it'd be worthwhile for, once that's been done, to bring that to the next full Council meeting to approve that for the avoidance of doubt. We'll all have seen those amendments and be comfortable with them. Did you hear me speak then?
Yes, we did, Karen. Yes. Yeah.
Would members be supportive of that? Could we show hands, please? Okay.
It looks unanimous, Chairman.
That was unanimous. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a resolution for us to move forward from that. I can see in the chat I've got Councillor Roper would like to speak. Councillor Roper.
Thank you. Just very quickly, Madam Chairman, just notwithstanding anything within this report, can we just have an assurance that we have a current programme of meetings and that it's the intention for that programme of meetings still to stand and that they will take place provided there is business to transact? Thank you.
Would you like me to pick that up, Chairman?
Yes, please.
Yeah, of course. The schedule of meetings is on the website. Obviously, members are aware we took the decision to cancel the April meetings. The technology and the need for the council to react to the response rather than to hold the committee meetings overtook those. Our ambition is to carry those on now. We have a series of meetings in June, and as long as there is business coming forward, then those meetings will, of course, be held in line with the schedule of meetings.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer, for clarifying that. Well, I think we've had a very good debate around this item. I'm just trying to see, Councillor Mancini-Boyle, you wish to reserve the right to speak. Would you like to speak at this point?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to say, actually, I think the Monitoring Officer and her team have done an amazing job enabling us to hold a full council meeting. There are many councils who are not doing this. They are evoking an emergency committee and so forth. So democracy has reigned supreme within Broadland. So I would like to congratulate the team and again, second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I would echo that there is a lot of work in pulling this meeting together virtually in this way, and I'd thank officers for doing that. We are amongst very few councils operating in this way at the moment. So thank you for your comments there, Councillor Mancini-Boyle. I'll go back to Councillor Vincent. Would you like to sum up before we go to the vote, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We've heard a lively debate there that's picked up a number of issues. It just highlights that our constitution is so important to us in making sure that it's correct and right. So I thank those that have painstakingly gone over it to try and ensure that we are in the right place, and also thank the monitoring officer for picking up the elements that she is going to pick up and take forward for us and correct. Just picking up on the point made by Councillor Roper around the programme of meetings and the other elements that have linked to that. Yes, we have a programme of meetings. Yes, we are going to fulfil that programme of meetings subject to there being business to be done. As Councillor Mancini-Boyle has outlined for us, we are a council that has been very proactive in wanting to remain democratic in an open and informative way to enable as many members to be part of the process going forward. Yes, we've had to cancel a few meetings, but only a few. Our view going forward is that using the technology and the rules and regulations that are in the Coronavirus Act and now following forward into our constitution will enable us to show how well we can perform and move our process onto a virtual platform. The officers have done an amazing work in getting us to this place, and it's I don't think it's really appreciated just how much work and time it takes to pull one of these meetings together. For most of us, we log on at the appropriate time and it all just works most of the time. Occasionally there are a few gremlins in the system, and sometimes they make us smile and sometimes they make us pull our hair out. I think we're all slowly going grey as our hair gets longer, but as I said right at the beginning of this, it is unprecedented times. therefore, you have the recommendation to cancel at 8.1 on page 79 before you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent, for summing up there. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder. We now need to go to the vote on this, please. Officer Matthews, could you please call the roll to do so? Sorry, I can see Councillor Wymark putting his hand up. Did you want to say something?
No, I just wondered if we could resolve it with a show of hands. That's all, Chairman.
I believe we can't because it's a recommendation to cancel, but I'll seek advice on that. Monitoring officer?
Yep, no, you are correct, Chairman, and I think there's been a lot of debate on this, so a roll call would be a wise decision as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So, Officer Matthews, could you please proceed with a roll call? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. If you could indicate again if you were for or against the recommendation in front of you. Councillor Adams.
Just to explain, a fuse blew. That's why it suddenly disappeared from the screen, but I am for.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan.
For.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
For.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
For.
Councillor Crotch.
For.
Councillor Emsell.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
Oh God.
Waiting. Please, will you unmute?
Oh dear.
I think Councillor Fisher has lost connection. Did you hear me? Emma, did you hear me?
I can hear you. I believe I can't find Councillor Fisher.
No, I think he's lost connection. So he might need to be accepted back in again.
Yeah, there's no one in the waiting room to accept back in, so I will keep an eye.
Okay, Councillor Folger.
For.
Councillor Grattan.
For.
Councillor Gurney.
For.
Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Hempsell.
For just saying that I had to cancel place shaping today, so not quite the schedule, but yeah, steaming ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Guvanlu.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor J Leggett.
For.
Councillor K Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mackie.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
For.
Councillor Moncur.
For.
Councillor Murrell.
For.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nurden.
For.
Councillor Peck.
For.
Councillor Prutton.
For.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor Snowling.
For.
Councillor Starling.
For.
Councillor D Thomas.
For.
Councillor J Thomas.
For.
Councillor K Vincent.
For.
Councillor S Vincent.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Wymark.
For.
And
that's unanimous.
And do we have Councillor Fisher back in the room?
Councillor Fisher is back in the room. He is, yes.
I haven't recorded Councillor Fisher's vote because I'm not sure how much of the debate he was present for, but I don't think it actually materially changes the outcome, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Officer Matthews. Right, that now brings us to item 15. I'm mindful we still have a few items to go. I propose that we have a short adjournment for a comfort break. It's now 5 to 9 by my clock. I propose that we come back at 9 o'clock. So I will adjourn the meeting now and we will resume at 9 o'clock. Thank you, members. Hello, members. I make that's 5 minutes is up, so I will re-adjourn the meeting and proceed with item 14 of our agenda papers. That's on page 83 of our agenda pack, financial implications of COVID-19. And I'll invite Councillor Manzini-Boyle to introduce this paper, please. Councillor Manzini-Boyle.
Chairman, could I just interject before we do move to that? I technically need to do a roll call to make sure that everyone has returned. I know that's going to be slightly painful, but if members could bear with me, because we actually need to just confirm that everyone has come back to the meeting.
Thank you. Yes, let's do that, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Adams.
Here.
Councillor Brennan. Councillor Brennan, are you present?
I don't think he is. Obviously.
He's on mute at the moment. Emma, are you able to unmute Mr. Brennan?
I'm just trying to find him. Yep, I found him. You won't let me unmute, Dawn, I'm afraid.
So I can't at the moment confirm that Mr. Brennan is with us. But until he tells us otherwise, I have to assume he's not with us at the moment. Councillor Britcher.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Bullman.
Here.
Okay.
Councillor Catchpole.
Here.
Councillor Cook.
Here.
Councillor Copplestone.
Here.
Councillor Crotch.
Here.
Councillor Emsell.
Here.
Councillor Fisher.
Here.
Councillor Folger.
Councillor Folger, could you unmute, please?
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Grattan.
Here.
Councillor Gurney.
Oh.
Councillor Hartley.
Here.
Councillor Hempsall.
Here.
Councillor Holland.
Here.
Councillor Creamy Givenloo.
Here.
Councillor Kelly.
Here.
Councillor Lawn.
Here.
Councillor Lawrence.
Here.
Councillor J Leggett.
Here.
Councillor K Leggett.
Present.
Councillor Mackey.
Here.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Present.
Councillor Moncur.
Present.
Councillor Murrell.
Here.
Councillor Neeson.
Here.
Councillor Nurden.
Present.
Councillor Peck.
Here.
Councillor Prutton.
Here.
Councillor Riley.
Here.
Councillor Roper.
Here.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
Here.
Councillor Shaw.
Here.
Councillor Snowling.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Starling.
Here.
Councillor D Thomas.
Here.
Councillor J Thomas.
Here.
Councillor K Vincent.
Present.
Councillor S Vincent.
Present.
Councillor J Ward.
Here.
Councillor Wymark.
And I can,
Here.
I can
Councillor
confirm that
Brennan.
Councillor Brennan is now present as well.
Yep, I've seen him join us. Thank you.
Yeah, apologies, I'm now here.
Thank you. All members are present, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews, and we'll proceed to item 14 of our agenda, financial implications of COVID-19. I'll invite Councillor Mancini-Boyle to present the paper, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, you have before you confirmation of the various tranches of payments received from central government. Some of these payments are to support Broadland District Council to respond to the pandemic, and others are for grants to businesses and also for those in council tax hardship. The business grants paid out as at the 8th of May are detailed on page 84 of your papers. Details of the hardship fund payments are on page 85. Details of the new discretionary fund for businesses and how it will be distributed will be announced shortly. Ongoing financial pressures to Broadland District Council are on pages 86 and 87 of your papers. The medium-term financial plan is in the process of being reviewed. and we will have more figures available for that in June. This will come to ONS and also to Cabinet. In the meantime, I would like Council to ratify the decision to incur any additional expenditure necessary up to £100,000 a month. This will be reported to the finance portfolio holder monthly, albeit retrospectively. If there was an urgent need to spend over £100,000 a month, this would be dealt with under the emergency provisions in budget. This will allow officers to react quickly to changing circumstances. I would like to therefore recommend to Council paragraphs 8.1, 1 and 2 on page 87.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini-Boyle. Do you have a seconder for your proposal? I can see in chat that's Councillor Sean Vincent has seconded that. Councillor Vincent, would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
I'll speak later, please.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open up for question and debate. I did have an early question from Councillor Catchpole on this. Councillor Catchpole, would you still like to raise your question?
No, I think that was answered by Trudy saying that we will have a revised financial plan in time for ONS in June. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catchpole. Councillor Riley, I see that you would like to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the recommendation point 1, to ratify the decision to incur any additional expenditure necessary up to £100,000 a month. Just to, and I know that Trudy just mentioned that to deal with any excess in that could be dealt with under emergency procedures. So I'm just giving an example here. We could get to day 13, 14, 15. We've got to the 100,000. I know that all of us as councillors would want to ensure that we can still provide support if we do get to that kind of cap. And I'm just looking for the clarification on the mechanism, which obviously needs to be a timely mechanism for the emergency procedures around that. Just in relation to perhaps also clarification to the monitoring officer, I know when we first had to put in funding for this very quickly, under the Constitution, the monitoring officer had to come to myself as the ONS chair to give the go-ahead for that, which of course I did. And I'm just wondering if it's the same emergency mechanism that Trudy is referring to, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I can see that Councillor Mancini-Boyle would like to come back on that point.
Thank you.
Yes, I have the wording to put Councillor Riley's mind at rest. I have the wording in front of me. The Cabinet, a committee of the Cabinet, portfolio holders or officers or joint arrangements discharging executive functions may take a decision which is contrary to the Council's policy framework or contrary to or not wholly in accordance with the budget approved. This is in consultation, however, with the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, which is obviously yourself, Councillor Riley.
Thank you very much, Trudy, for that clarification, because obviously we want to make sure that we can do what we need to do in that emergency quickly and timely, and obviously that covers it. So thank you very much.
Aaron, you were muted then, we didn't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you both for that. And I can see that Councillor Harpley would like to speak. So I was inviting Councillor Harpley to speak now.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's mostly been covered actually by Councillor Mancini-Boyle and Councillor Riley there. When I first read the report, I was a little bit concerned about arbitrary figures of, £100,000 a month. What if it was to go over that? But we've said this is in retrospect now. I'm just a little bit concerned that if people are coming asking for help towards the end of the month as we're reaching the top of our budget, although it is quite a generous budget, that people aren't going to miss out on getting the help they need because we're having to go through extra special measures to get extra funding allowances. And as a separate point, I was just going to query, what are we going to do regarding getting our local MP or us ourselves lobbying the government for proper funding? Because at the start of this, we were told that council should spend whatever they need to so people can be safe. But now that kind of went back a little bit and we're having to be a little bit more careful with our money. So yeah, what are we doing to make sure we get extra funding?
Thank you for your 2 points. Councillor Mancini-Boyle, would you like to come back on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hartley. I can assure you that our regular meetings with both of the relevant MPs for Broadland, they're weekly actually, and we do feedback constantly what is required for Broadland. We obviously focus on Broadland because that's what's most important to us. So I can assure you both Jerome Mayhew and Chloe Smith are aware of what requirements Broadland needs, and they do take it back, and actually there has been some success from them, and we will keep doing that because obviously we do require the additional funding. Thank you.
Councillor Hartley, I can see that you're nodding. You comfortable with the answer you've been given? Thank you, that's good to see. Right, I can see Councillor Karimi Govanu would like to raise a question. Apologies if I mispronounced that.
That's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Am I able to ask on page 85 under 4.5, the £150 reduction in council tax? There were some challenges in administering this charge. Have these challenges now been overcome, or when can we expect this to be implemented if not?
Thank you for your question. I'm going to invite Councillor Mancini-Boyle to respond. I can see she's raising her hand there.
Yes, I'm aware of this. This is not a Broadland District Council issue. Capita are the provider for Broadland District Council, and there has been an issue. South Norfolk don't use Capita, and they are able to get their £150 out. We're looking at maybe another week. However, what we have put in place is no direct debits have been collected from these people, so nobody will suffer, no residents will suffer. Anyone that qualifies for the £150 discount at the moment are not paying any direct debits. That is the best way we can see to resolve it. Capita have been put on a bit of a warning because they're not solving their IT issue, but it isn't a Broadland issue that we can solve. We can only put pressure on those.
I appreciate the response. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini-Boyle, for your response there. Would anyone else like to raise any point of questions during this debate? Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on the point that Natasha made and truly did really cover it in terms of the MPs. I was just wondering also if Broadland, if perhaps Trudy could also clarify as well, if Broadland are making direct representations through to the ministry and the minister directly as well as the MPs.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle, I'll invite you to respond to that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, we obviously have, we're fortunate enough to also have Councillor Fuller with his connections with the LGA, and we are obviously feeding everything we can through him also.
Okay, does anybody else wish to say anything? We've had quite a debate on this. So we have a proposer and a seconder. I will go back to Councillor Vincent if he would like to, he reserved the right.
Thank you, Chairman. lot of things have already been said about this, so it puts it into a very positive position. As Councillor Mancini Boyle has indicated, there's a phenomenal amount of work going on, and this is about enabling us to respond in short term to resource requirements and funding where that's necessary. Just to pick up on the points, some of the points made around voicing Broadland's requirements and needs. Yes, we are in contact frequently with both MPs for the area. I also write to them and try to steer them in the right way around the things that we're trying to get for Broadland. In addition to that, we also have the fortunate position of the leader of South Norfolk being the chairman of DCN, which means that he is able to voice both Broadland and South Norfolk needs very strongly with the rest of the district councils directly to ministers, which is a great asset to have. So I'm quite comfortable that we're in a good position to move this item forward, and what it does do is enable the council to remain in control of its spending, while also enabling it to move quickly. And this is going to be particularly important as we move into recovery and make things happen within our communities, to make them safe, make them vibrant, and to bring people back out and start to interact socially, but also from a social distance as the requirements move forward. So I'm happy to support the proposal as put forward by Councillor Mancini Boyle.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. That means I'll come back to yourself now, Councillor Mancini Boyle's proposer. Would you like to sum up before we go to the vote, please?
No, I think we've had a good debate. I'm hopeful that members are happy with the responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Given the debate that we have had, I propose that we go to the vote via a roll call. I'll invite Officer Matthews to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, if you could indicate if you are for or against the proposal. Councillor Adams?
For.
Councillor Brennan?
For.
Councillor Britcher?
For.
Councillor Bullman?
For.
Councillor Catchpole?
For.
Councillor Cook?
For.
Councillor Copplestone?
For.
Councillor Crotch?
For.
Councillor Emsell?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Folger?
For.
Councillor Grattan?
For.
Councillor Gurney?
Councillor Gurney, could you unmute, please?
Go.
Councillor Gurney, oh, there you are. Could you indicate if you're for or against the proposal?
I'm sorry, my mouse dropped on the floor. For.
Thank you. Councillor Hartley? Councillor Hartley?
Councillor Hartley, could you unmute, please?
Can't seem to get a response from Councillor Hartley. I'll move on and come back to her perhaps in a moment. Councillor Hemsell?
For.
Councillor Holland?
For.
Councillor Hartley, could I ask if you're for or against the motion? Were you?
Sorry, I'm for. I pressed something. I'm for.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Karimi Guvanlu?
For.
Councillor Kelly?
For.
Councillor Lawn?
For.
Councillor Lawrence?
For.
Councillor J Leggett?
For.
Councillor K Leggett?
For.
Councillor Mackie?
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle?
For.
Councillor Moncur?
For.
Councillor Murrell?
For.
Councillor Neeson?
For.
Councillor Nurden?
For.
Councillor Peck?
4.
Councillor Pretton.
4.
Councillor Riley.
4.
Councillor Roper.
4.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
4.
Councillor Shaw.
4.
Councillor Snowling. That's a 4. Thank you. Councillor D. Thomas.
4.
Councillor J. Thomas.
Sorry, you missed me out.
Do apologise. Was that?
Starling.
Do apologise. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Councillor Starling.
4.
Thank you. Councillor K. Vincent.
4.
Councillor S. Vincent.
No. Yeah, 4.
Thank you. Lost the leader. Councillor Ward.
4.
And Councillor Wymark.
4.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Could I just ask members, I'm hearing a lot of playback on various members. I'm not sure if you've got mute on. If you haven't, could you please mute your microphones unless you're asked to speak? I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Just in addition to that, Chairman, I am trying to mute and unmute, but some members aren't allowing that me to do that. So, and I will try and assist as much as I can.
Thank you. Right, we've heard that has been carried unanimously. So we now move on to item 15, water damage at Thorpe Lodge. I will invite Councillor Emsall to introduce that paper for us, please. Councillor Emsall.
Good evening, councillors. We've got the item 15 on page 88, the water damage at Thorpe Lodge. There is a summary of the incident there. I think we are all aware of the problems that we had. The insurance, and obviously will all be worked out. You've got plans there of how it was, and we have the implications there are obviously present at the last, and we've got to note the effect, the response of the water leak at Thorpe Lodge, and decide to take under the decision taken under the urgent provisions to incur expenditure to deal with the water damage. So it's pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Thank you, Councillor Emsall. Councillor Mancini Boyle, I think I should have come to you to present that one. So I'm very grateful, Councillor Emsall, for doing.
I thought you should as well, but I just
very polite.
Yes, it was me actually. And just to say there was a slight update on that. It's actually a little bit more. It's £10,446 now. We've still only got the £100 policy excess, and at the moment we are still chasing our insurance company for the funds, but I guess they're pretty busy at the moment. But there is no reason why they wouldn't pay out. But just to give you an update, it is slightly more than in your papers, members. So I don't know how we do this now, because I was going to propose it. So I don't know how you want to do this now, Madam Chair.
I'm very sorry. I went to the wrong person to introduce the paper. Councillor Emsall, would you be happy if Councillor Mancini Boyle proposed this?
Yes, that's fine. We are just noting it, so it's fine.
Okay, Councillor Mancini Boyle, I understand that you're proposing this item.
Yeah, so it's 4.1 on page 91.
Thank you, and my sincere apologies for my blonde moment there. Do we have a seconder? I can see in the chat that's Councillor Sean Vincent. Would you like to speak now or reserve the right to speak later?
I'll speak now, please.
Okay, please do.
I'd just like to again commend officers for how well they stepped up and dealt with this issue. It was at a point when the world was normal and things were not as they are today. I've not used the unprecedented word, so there you go, I've stuck it in. But at this point in time, when we had the flood at Thorpe Lodge, it was a surprise on an early Monday morning to discover water everywhere. The officers were amazing in that they ones that could work from home did so with very little fuss. The IT team set up the council chamber and got that up and running as a temporary office, housing, I think, around 45 people. Other officers moved into accommodation around Thorpe Lodge to carry on functioning while the catastrophe that occurred with the vending machine just unraveled and was recovered from. It was dealt with very well, and it was a matter of weeks before we were up and running again. And as of now, the officers would be back in those desks if they were not working from home. Obviously, they've enjoyed being able to work from home and enjoyed the sunshine, hopefully, despite the times that we're in. When they are ready and in a position to come back to work in an appropriate manner with social distancing, then the office is now there, ready and available for them. So I'm quite happy to thank the officers for all that they've done, both in getting us back up and running and also for their forbearance as those that were affected, and to second this motion or this recommendation to council.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Would anybody like to speak at this point? Councillor Riley, I believe that you would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo Sean Vincent's comments then, there was a superb job done. Clearly that was such an emergency, it just happened overnight. But what I was also pleased about was that we've clearly, if you look at page 90, got the emergency procedures in place to be able to sanction that kind of spending and sanction it very quickly indeed. And the process is in place, and you can follow that through from 4.1 to 4.3, and we're well covered in this situation in terms of emergencies, and I was glad to respond as quickly as I did on that day. So again, thank you, officers, for everything you did in regards to this.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on this item before we go to the vote? No, I'll go back to Councillor Mancini-Boyle. Would you like to sum up before we go to the vote?
No, I think everything's been said. The papers are before you. We responded admirably, and yeah, I'd just like to note the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have the recommendation before us on page 87 of our agenda papers. I will just take the monitoring officer's advice how we vote on this particular item, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Although it is to note, it was expenditure that was occurred in an emergency, so we do need a vote on this, please. Apologies all.
No, that's fine, but can we do a show of hands, or do we need to do a roll call? I'm assuming we need to do a roll call.
I would prefer a roll call as it is a recommendation. Yes, please, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Officer Matthews, would you please call the roll for us? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Again, members, please, if you could indicate if you're for or against. Mr. Adams?
For.
Councillor Brennan?
For.
Councillor Britcher?
For.
Councillor Bullman?
For.
Councillor Catchpole?
For.
Councillor Cook?
For.
Councillor Copplestone?
For.
Councillor Crotch?
For.
Councillor Emsell?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Folger?
Councillor Folger, could you unmute yourself, please?
For.
Councillor Grattan?
For.
Councillor Gurney?
For.
Councillor Hartley?
For.
Councillor Hempsell?
For.
Councillor Holland?
For.
Councillor Karimi Givenley?
For.
Councillor Kelly?
For.
Councillor Lawn?
For.
Councillor Lawrence?
For.
Councillor J Leggett?
For.
Councillor K Leggett?
For.
Councillor Mackie?
For.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle?
For.
Councillor Moncur?
For.
Councillor Murrell?
For.
Councillor Neeson?
For.
Councillor Nurden?
For.
Councillor Peck?
For.
Councillor Prutton?
For.
Councillor Riley,
4.
Councillor Roper,
4.
Councillor Ryman Tubb,
4.
Councillor Shaw,
4.
Councillor Snowling,
4.
Councillor Starling,
4.
Councillor D Thomas,
4.
Councillor J Thomas,
4.
Councillor K Vincent,
4.
Councillor S Vincent,
4.
Councillor J Ward,
4.
Councillor Wymark.
4.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman.
Thank you, Officer Matthews, for confirming that's been carried unanimously. Now that takes us on to item 16, the pay policy statement that's set out on page 92 of our agenda papers. And this time I will invite again Councillor Emsell to introduce this report, and hopefully I've got it right this time. Councillor Emsell.
If I can draw members' attention to the pay policy statement. The Localism Act that was introduced in 2012 requires local authorities to produce an annual pay policy statement. Key changes are in paragraph 29, which shows the move to a single officer team and the joint terms and conditions following the collaboration between Broadland and South Norfolk Council. You have the full policy in Appendix A. If anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Emsell. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? I can see in the chat, Councillor Sean Vincent is seconded that. Would you like to speak now, Councillor Vincent, or reserve the right?
I'll reserve the right.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll at that point open up for question and debate. Would anyone like to raise a question or comment at this point, please? If you could let me know via chat. I'll give you a moment just in case. I can see nothing coming through. Could I just ask Officer Mockford, is there anything, are you aware of any questions or comments at this point?
Councillor Riley would like to, there's a message there to speak. No? Okay.
Councillor Riley, did you want to raise anything, or was that on a previous item?
No, that's from ages ago, Chair.
Okay, oh, okay, we're covered with that then. Okay, on that point, Councillor Vincent, you reserve the right. You've spoken already.
No.
Hmm?
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay.
I'll jump in there.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so
You're on mute, Mr. Vincent.
Okay, thank you. Got it sorted now. Just to pick up on the presentation the portfolio holder has done for us, Councillor Elsom, the requirement around this is for the council to approve the annual pay policy statement.
Sorry, I've just seen that Councillor Catchpole wanted to speak before you reserved that. They came through at the same time. So I will just take, apologies, I'll take Councillor Catchpole's question as you reserve the right to speak later. Are you happy with that, Councillor Vincent? Okay, Councillor Catchpole, you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. When I read through this policy under 6 pay bandings, I note that the pay spines will be periodically adjusted to reflect the appropriate market rate for the job using regional comparative data in order to be competitive. Can I just confirm that should there be a downward pressure on wages due to the high unemployment figures that are being projected, that this does not mean that the council staff wages or salaries would be reduced?
Thank you for your question. Councillor Emsell, are you able to reply to that, please?
The Broadland pay policy will always be there to attract the best people for the jobs that we have. Obviously, we've increased the potential of attracting people by being working with South Norfolk, because obviously we're getting what we can only see as a higher caliber of applicants, because they can see it's the joint working. So any policy reviews on what people will be paid will be in line with what the market is, and we won't be looking to make savings to say, oh well, everybody else is paying less, so we'll pay less, and then because we'd obviously then only attract people, we'd attract less well, not qualified, but we wouldn't attract the people we're attracting. So we would like to always stay competitive, but at the moment we have no plans to adjust that in that way.
Thank you, Councillor Emsall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Catchpole. At that point, I will go back to Councillor Vincent, who had reserved the right and was at mid-flow. Apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. Just picking up where I left off. So the annual pay policy statement is a requirement for council to approve this on an annual basis prior to it being published. And that's where we find ourselves at this point in time. So I'm quite happy to support the policy, the portfolio holder, in seconding his recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. I will now go back to Councillor Emsall, if you wanted to sum up before we go to the vote.
Yes, I think if councillors look through the statement, it does cover every aspect of every role that we've got in the council. We've done a lot of work on obviously working on how the terms and conditions are going to be for the staff all the time of the last year. So this is a very comprehensive piece of work that some councils would struggle on, because we've done so much work on what we want from the the staff positions and everything. Obviously the pay spines have all just only recently been all looked at and everything like that, as we've merged what we're doing with what South Norfolk are doing, and we're seeing what the joint things that are there, the working. So there's been a lot of work going into this whole how we pay the staff over the last year. So we've got a lot of information in there that is going to be looked at every year. It's very good, and if the council can approve the content of the Broadland District Council's 2019-20 pay policy statement as attached in advance of its publication on the council's website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Emsall. As you've heard, we've got the recommendation. It's on page 92 before you. We have a proposer and a seconder. I will now take us to the vote. I believe this will need to be a roll call, and I'll invite Officer Matthews to please take the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just draw your attention before we do that the recommendation refers to 1920, and I think that should be 2021, just to make it sure. Can I just
that is correct. That's correct, Dawn. Yeah, that is correct.
So we are voting on the recommendation, but for 2020-21.
Thank you very much for clarifying that point. Yes, indeed, we are.
Sorry, yeah, it is. It's on the headline is the correct.
Thank you. So if I can then go for the vote for or against again, members, please. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Brennan.
For.
Councillor Britcher.
For.
Councillor Bullman.
Councillor Bullman, could you unmute, please?
Oh yeah, sorry, just falling asleep.
Councillor Bullman, can you confirm if you're for or against the proposal?
Oh, Christ. Oh. God, dear.
Councillor Bullman, could you give your vote, please?
What I had, sorry, for.
Thank you.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Copplestone.
For.
Councillor Crotch.
For.
Councillor Emsall.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Folger.
Councillor Folger, could you unmute, please?
God.
For.
Councillor Grattan. Councillor Gurney.
Could I just stop a moment? For those people who are not yet being called, could you please mute your microphones, please? We're hearing a lot of background noise. Thank you.
Councillor Gurney.
Yes, I'm for it. Thank you.
Councillor Hartley.
For.
Councillor Hempsall.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlu.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
For.
Councillor Lawrence.
For.
Councillor J Leggett.
For.
Councillor K Leggett.
For.
Councillor Mackie.
For.
Councillor Mancini Boyle.
For.
Councillor Moncur.
I guess it's getting past people's bedtime, but for.
Thank you. Councillor Murrell.
For.
Councillor Neeson.
For.
Councillor Nurden. Councillor Nurden.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Peck.
For.
Councillor Prutton.
For.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Councillor Roper.
For.
Councillor Ryman Tubb.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For.
Councillor Snowling.
For.
Councillor Starling.
For.
Councillor D Thomas.
For.
Councillor J Thomas.
For.
Councillor K Vincent.
For.
Councillor S Vincent.
For.
Councillor Ward.
For.
Councillor Wymark.
For.
That's unanimous, Chairman. That's carried.
Thank you, Officer Matthews, for confirming that's unanimous and that's been carried. I appreciate it's been a long meeting. I feel that some members are losing the will here, but please bear with us. We are close to the end of this agenda. We have item 17 next. That's the Norfolk Police and Crime Panel. That's on page 107 of your agenda papers. I'll invite Councillor Sean Vincent to introduce the paper, please. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to pick up on this, so this relates to the Norfolk Police and Crime Panel. The report has come before Council as it's coming before all councils across Norfolk. And the intent is to agree to an amendment to the Norfolk Police and Crime Panel arrangements to allow Air Commodore Kevin Pallett to continue in the role of co-opted independent member on the panel. The rationale behind this and the reasoning behind it, and you won't be surprised to hear, but it's due to the exceptional circumstances due to the coronavirus. So the report is worded slightly different. But the reasoning behind it was that the Air Commodore's role, who he's currently Vice Chairman, was due to come to an end in July 2020. And the panel was due to sit on the 24th of March to start proceedings to enable a replacement to be found. Unfortunately, due to lockdown, that meeting was cancelled. And that has left the panel in a difficult position. So they have asked us to make some amendments to allow the current person in the role, Air Commodore, to continue. So the amendments or the recommendations to Council are twofold. One is to allow for the arrangements within the panel to reappoint a co-opted independent member without an open recruitment. And then the second one is then to actually continue the co-option of the Air Commodore into to remain in his position. So they're the two recommendations that I'd like to put to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent, for introducing that report. Looking for a seconder. I can see Councillor Mancini Ball, you've indicated in chat that you would like to second this. Would you like to speak now or reserve the right?
I'll reserve the right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mancini Boyle. Therefore, I'll open this up to question, comment, debate. Would anyone like to raise any points at this stage? If so, please could you indicate through the chat? I will just give it a moment before I jump into going back to Councillor Mancini Boyle.
No, I think Councillor Vincent has said everything. We don't really have a lot of options at the moment. So I'd again like to second the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I had no comments come in, so thank you for that. You've seconded it. Right. Okay, Councillor Vincent, did you want to sum up before we go to the vote?
Thank you, Chairman. I think we probably covered it all. It's a practical solution to a problem that currently exists, so we should just support this and move forward. So I suggest we go to the vote.
Thank you for that. I just seek the advice of the monitoring officer. Could we undertake the vote this time by a show of hands?
Go on then, because I think we've all ready to go home. So if we could have a show of hands, please, on the screens, and I'll confirm if that is unanimous. Councillor Fisher, can you confirm, are you in favour of this report?
Emma, Councillor Cook as well is not visual at the moment.
Councillor Cook, can we see your screen, please? Councillor Fisher, I can't see you either. Thank you, Councillor Fisher. That is, I believe, Councillor Cook is the only person who I can't see, but that is unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much, Monitoring Officer, for confirming that. Right, moving swiftly on now, we are moving on to item 18 of the agenda. That is outside organisations. The reports from members are set out on starting on page 113 of the papers. I'd like to thank those members who have submitted their reports to Council for our consideration. Given the time, with Council's agreement, I don't propose to ask those councillors to embellish on those unless there's something pressing that we need to see or to hear. If you feel differently, could you please indicate now through the chat?
Councillor Hempsall, I think, is indicating.
Oh, God.
Councillor Ken Leggett, could you mute your microphone, please?
I've muted him, Chairman.
Okay, and Councillor Hempsall, would you like to raise any particular point on your?
No, I just wanted to say, Chairman, that I'm attending a virtual committee of the full Broads Authority tomorrow morning. So, and they have a lot to live up to. You've done a splendid job this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hempsall. On that point, I think we've noted, is Council happy to note the reports from the outside organisations via the representatives? Could you all show of hands, please?
That's unanimous, Chair, apart from Councillor Cook, who I can't see.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. That now takes us to item 19 of the agenda, questions from members. Officer Matthews, do we have any?
No, Chairman.
Thank you. And item 20, motions. Do we have any?
No motions, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, that concludes the business of this council this evening. I'd just like to thank all members here present for their attendance, their participation and their patience. I appreciate it's been a very long meeting, but I believe we've had a very successful meeting. So thank you very much. I will now close the meeting at 21:50 and I will wish you all to remain stay safe, keep well, look after yourself, and I hope to see you in person soon. Take care. Good night.
Thank you, Karen. Well done.
Bye.
Well done, Chairman. Well done.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good night.
Well done.
Very good. Very
Well done,
good.
Ken. You need to learn where the mute button is, though.
Yes, that was classic. Oh my goodness!
Can we just take care because it's probably still.
So can we just leave, please, because we're still recording. So if you could all leave, thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.